Krusty the Clown is easily one of the most popular Simpsons characters ever. The deranged, Boozadell Children's entertainer has been a mainstay on the show since 1989 and is featured in some of its most iconic episodes. There's no denying, Krusty's a fan favorite. But what do we really know about him? Well, today's episode is all about that. Let's get into it. We are, of course, going to start off with the basics. Krusty the Clown was born Herschel Krustofsky on September 23rd, 1934 in the town of Krusto in the state of Krustoslavia. I'm just kidding, he's from New York City. Now, his parents were Jewish immigrants from Poland who had fled to the United States during World War II, and growing up, Krusty wasn't exactly the model child. In fact, he was expelled from Hebrew school for throwing chumros at his classmates. To make matters worse, when he was just 10 years old, his father died of a heart attack. And rather than taking this time to bond with his family and grieve, Krusty ran away from home and joined the circus. Now, while living in the circus, Krusty met a man named Busta. And together, they became part of a duo called Krusty and Busta. As part of their act, they would dress up as cowboys and perform death-defying feats of horsemanship. It was actually during a performance that Krusty met the love of his life, a trapeze artist named and soon after they got married and had a son whom they named Herschel Jr. Sadly, though young Herschel didn't inherit his father's daredevil streak because he was severely accident. In fact, he once tried to walk a tightrope and fell so hard that he ended up going blind. So, obviously, seeing that his kid was basically useless, Krusty decided that it was up to him to keep the family name alive. So when Krusty and Booster's act started to flop, Krusty decided to go solo and began performing as a clown. This proved to be a success, and it allowed him to put food on the table for his wife and kids. However, it was unlong before Krusty grew sick of life on the road and wanted to try and find a steady gig somewhere. His big break came when he was hired to host a local children's show in Springfield called the Krusty the Clown Show. Over the next couple of decades, the Krusty the Clown Show became a huge hit, which made Krusty one of the richest entertainers in the world. I mean, at one point he even had his own cereal. Unfortunately, though, Krusty was also known for being an irresponsible drunk, and oftentimes he would forget important aspects of his job, like, for example, showing up to work. So eventually, in 1989, he was fired from his show. But luckily for him, he was able to land a new gig hosting a late-night talk show. This worked out great for both parties involved, because it meant that Krusty could finally be more honest about his addiction problems. And it gave the producers of The Simpsons a great opportunity to hire a replacement host for the Krusty the Clown Show. That's right. The Simpsons producer, James L. Brooks, originally envisioned Krusty the Clown as the host of a children's show within the world of The Simpsons. And the first episode of The Simpsons even opens with a segment called the Krusty the Clown Show. However, as mentioned earlier, Krusty was fired from his show after 20 years due to his drinking, and the opening sequence was changed to reflect this. Now, Krusty's history with alcohol is definitely a dark part of his story, but it's a necessary one to understand who he is as a character. Krusty doesn't just drink because he likes to. Alcohol is what allows him to keep his pain and depression at bay. In fact, there is an episode where Krusty is forced to go to AA meetings, and it turns out that the reason he started drinking was to deal with the trauma he suffered after his partner. Booster accidentally ran him over with a horse while they were performing. The guilt he felt after this incident led him to intelligent guy. When he's sober, he's well-read, articulate, very funny, and can quote Shakespeare. At one point in the series, he even went to Harvard University to receive an honorary doctorate degree. Also, Krusty is a great businessman. He owns Krusty Burger, Krusty Land, and the Krusty U Studios, among many other businesses. Basically, Krusty is a multi-talented individual. But sometimes he can be reckless with his money, like when he paid $1 million for a hamburger made out of pure gold. But for the most part, he's a savvy investor who knows how to make a buck. Next, let's talk about Krusty's relationships. First up, we have his relationship with his son, Herschel Jr. As I touched on earlier, Krusty's son went blind after a tightrope accident when he was a kid, and Krusty has always felt guilty about this. For years, Krusty kept secrets from his son about his accident and what really happened. But eventually, The greedy, manipulative talent agent has been nothing but a thorn in Krusty's side throughout the years, constantly trying to screw him out of money and get him to do things that he does unwant to do. Believe it or not, though, Mr. Pukaya is actually based on a real person. When Krusty first arrived in Springfield, he was represented by a man named Irving Paul, who, just like Mr. Purchaya, was horrible at his job and only cared about money. Finally, we have Krusty's relationship with his sidekick, Sideshow Mel. Mel is a former trapeze artist who retired after injuring his back. And ever since then, he's become the host of the Krusty the Clown show and Krusty's right-hand man. Krusty doesn't always treat Mel very well, often yelling at him and making fun of him, but he does seem to care about him deep down. So there you have it, a complete history of Krusty the Clown. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like and consider following for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.